Xin chào.
안녕하세요.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Selamat siang.
You are now listening to One Road Research with Peter Pham, decoding Asia's economic miracle for the best market returns.
Okay, Robert, welcome to the One Road Research podcast. Thank you for being on our show.
Oh, my honor. Thank you, Peter.
So, Robert, one of the things that we do is we cover Asian markets, and I know a lot of your content covers a lot about Vietnam, and you always talk about your history there. Could you give to the audience a quick synopsis about like some of your experiences in Vietnam, and what did you ultimately learn? Because it seems like a massive turning point in your life.
Yeah, they, like most young people, I wanted a high-paying job, and so I went to the Merchant Marine Academy in New York, Kings Point. I also had nominations to Naval Academy at Annapolis, Maryland. But I took Kings Point because back then, we're the highest paid graduates in the world. So my classmates, some of them were making like $120,000 a year, which wasn't much. It's not much today, but back then, in 1969, that was a lot of money.
Right.
So my starting pay was $47,000 a year because I worked for non-union Standard Oil. I have an aversion to unions because my father, poor dad, was head of the teachers union. I want nothing to do with unions. I'm a capitalist. But the Vietnam War was still on in 1969, and after a while, my conscience got to me when they drafted my kid brother. And so I volunteered for the Marine Corps, and I was fortunate enough to qualify for the pilot training program. They sent me to Pensacola, Florida, and then the aircraft I wanted to fly disappeared. It was called the A-1 SPAD, and AD they call it. And so I said, well, what's the fastest way to get to Vietnam? And they said, the helicopter gunship. And I said, why is that? He said, their life expectancy was 30 days anyway. So I said, I'll take it. And they sent me to Camp Pendleton, and I transitioned straight to Camp Pendleton to an aircraft carrier off of the Vietnam coast. And that's where the whole thing started. So it turned out to be one of the most prophetic or the best decision I ever made was to go to fight the war. Because I learned so much about, number one, fake news.
What do you mean by that, Robert?
Oh, what we were reporting wasn't real. We'd report that we killed 9 million Vietnamese and we lost 10 men. All of it was fake. None of it was true. So it was kind of disillusioning. And then because I worked for Standard Oil, I understood the real purpose for the U.S. being in Vietnam was not to kill communists, but the real purpose was to make sure that China didn't get the oil in Vietnam. And so I went, oh my God, we're being lied to. And that was kind of the turning point for me. And then as I said at the New Orleans investment conference, my rich dad, who was my best friend's father, sent me a letter, and he says, hey, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard in 1971, and I was now 1972, and he said, watch out, the world's going to change. And I had no idea what he was talking about, but I figured I'd better get in on it. And my co-pilot and I flew into enemy territory because there was a gold mine already in enemy hands that we went to go buy gold from. And then we realized we didn't even know what gold was because back in 1972, it was illegal for an American to own gold, which I thought was strange again. I said, why is that? So we're here for oil, we're being lied to in the press, and why can't I own gold? And so there was just questions kept stacking up. And then our aircraft carrier sailed into Hong Kong, and I bought my first Krugerrand. I think I paid about $50 for it, which was a lot of money since I was only making about $500.
Yeah. So
I bought my first Krugerrand, and I still have it today. It's worth approximately $1,500. So it's always a reminder, when I speak to crowds, I say, did the Krugerrand get any bigger? Did it get heavier? Did it get more valuable? Or did the dollar go down in value? And that's why, if you've ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I say savers are losers, the rich don't work for money, and your house is not an asset. And my whole thing is we have no financial education in school, so mom and pop are always telling their kids, go to school, get a job, work hard, and save money. And why would you print money after the year 2000 when Greenspan and Bernanke and Yellen have come up with the biggest money printing in world history. Why would you save money when interest rates are negative? And I'm afraid much of the world population are very financially ignorant. They may have gone to college, but they really don't understand the macroeconomics of gold versus money.
Right. I think that segues to, I know you have a big focus onto real assets. Why is that the case that you're so, say, for example, bullish on hard assets like gold and real estate?
I don't like anything that's paper. I don't trust ETFs, mutual funds, stocks, bonds. I don't trust any of them. Anything that can be printed, I want nothing to do with. So once back then, I got out of the Marine Corps in '74, and that's when ERISA was passed, and ERISA became the 401k. And I remember working at Xerox, and they tried to put me in a 401k, and I'm going, why? And they said, well, because you'll invest for the long term in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And it didn't make sense to me since I could beat the returns, because I was taking real estate courses at the same time, understanding how to use debt to acquire real estate for an infinite return. So I knew the less cash I used, the higher my returns, if I could learn how to use debt to make money. And the more debt I used, the less tax I paid.
So
that was kind of my whole confusion. That was kind of a confusion. So why are they telling me to buy these mutual funds when I can beat it all day long with an infinite return rather than try to go for an 8% return?
Right. What I noticed, Robert, was during the financial crisis, pretty much all assets had declined, irrespective of whatever category it was in, either hard assets or, paper. So in a scenario like that, when obviously if you're buying, for example, real estate and you're using leverage to do so, are you interested in the capital appreciation of the asset, or you accept the volatility that exists within the, say, for example, the real estate that you purchase, and you're strictly focused on the yields that the real estate could actually provide for you? What's the key interest here in that scenario?
Well, number one, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have a job.
Right.
So I look at markets differently. Number two, I wait for crashes. So back in 2005, as you know, there was a real estate bubble in America, and I backed off. I just waited. And like clockwork, the MBS's mortgage-backed securities fired off, and the real estate market crashed down. So I entered the market, and they at the same time the Fed and the banks were dropping interest rates, trying to falsely prop the market up. So I thought I died and went to heaven. I borrowed $300 million with my partners, and we bought some of the best real estate for pennies on the dollar. Then I don't go for capital appreciation. As you saw from my example on the stage, being an entrepreneur, I want to increase the value of the property, so it increased the appraised value,
right,
and then increase my NOI, net operating income. And when net operating income is up, then I can refinance. So let's say my net operating income goes to $10,000, let's say, on my rental income, and the bank will probably give me 80% of $10,000 or $8,000. So I get this great loan-to-value ratios, and then from there I refinance everything and get all my cash out tax-free because it's coming out as debt.
Right.
So refinance, but I've increased the value of the property. I don't believe in net worth or capital gains. I don't play that game.
Right.
And so because I use debt, I have a thing called cash flow, and the more debt I have on the asset, the less tax I pay. And because I've stepped up the basis of the property from whatever it is to, let's say, a higher appraisal, then the IRS lets me take depreciation, appreciation, and amortization off the new appraised value.
Right.
So I don't pay tax. So Trump and I have the same formula. We use debt and we pay no tax legally.
Right. So in the instance of, say, 2017, which is where we're at, if one was to buy, for example, real estate, looking for the cash flows that one could generate, hypothetically, there's a chance that the real estate prices could be somewhat inflated due to all the stimulus and credit that's in the system. Now, in this scenario, would you be a proponent of it if you could basically increase the appraisal value through, various different fixer-upper mechanisms that would be able to hedge you from any potential decline in the price of real estate that could, say, happen within the next, say, 2 years or so?
Of course, if there's a good deal, I'm going to buy it. But right now, just to back up a little bit, back in 2007, nobody was in apartment houses. In 2007, everybody is in apartment houses. Apartment houses, multifamily housing, became the darling after 2007. So right now, my partners and I have backed off, and we're, if there's a crash, some of those guys are going to crash with it because they're late to market. Their basis is too high. Right. The acquisition cost is too high. So if there is a reckoning, which I think there is one coming, it's another buying opportunity, especially with interest rates still at 2%, 3.5%.
Having examined real estate for a very long time, Robert, do you have any indicators that you follow in regards to rationalization for why prices are the way that they are? Because I read tons of reports and I feel like relatively unsatisfied when I look at, there's a lot of, really big real estate service companies, and I'm sure you get all their reports and stuff like that. I feel like there's people rationalize it through things like urbanization, for example, within Southeast Asia, and therefore there's a lot of demand. But I think there's something much more macro at play. And I don't know, in all the time that you've examined real estate, do you have any indicators that you're particularly fond of when coming up with causality for why prices are the way that they are?
Well, always number one are there jobs. See, real estate is a function of jobs, my kind of real estate.
Okay.
So I used to invest in, and I still invest in oil. So I kind of had a captive market. I'd go to Oklahoma and I'd buy the oil wells, but I also rent to the apartment houses.
Right. A full vertical.
So it was kind of the old plantation general store concept where I got them coming and going.
Well, the issue.
So I'm always looking, if there's jobs, I'm moving in. That's like Austin, Texas.
Right.
So many people are moving in there and so many people are moving into Texas. That's a legitimate bubble. But San Francisco and New York, it's basically a lot of it's done by Chinese or Japanese money coming in, and Korean money. And I don't chase that because that's a bubble.
But would you be able to capture that trend prior to it happening? Like, for example, if you assess the demographics and due to a mass, aggregation of immigrants or something like that might be a potential trend, or you never participate in things like that? Because you would probably see a lot of that within the mega cities around the world over, basically.
Yeah, but it's like right now, Amazon shopping for a home, right?
Yeah.
If I had 30 days notice and let's say Amazon was going to move to Toledo, Ohio, I'd be there tonight.
That's interesting. Okay. So, for example, when we're here in the
I don't have inside information.
Yeah.
But I'm just giving you a hypothetical example.
Right. So
the other thing that's happening is Japan has a negative increase. They have a negative population growth. America, in the foreseeable future, has a net income population growth of about 2 million people a year. So that's good. And plus there's an out-migration from California because prices are too high. So, I own properties in Nevada and Texas and Arizona. So I pick up the migration.
So if Tesla builds a battery plant in Nevada, where they're going to spend about $50 billion on infrastructure, you might want to have a few houses near there.
And we do. I don't go to houses. I go to apartment houses.
Right.
Why I don't do single family. There's too much trouble.
Okay. Hypothetically, for someone that was initially starting, though, what would you suggest in this situation?
Well, I would take a real estate course first. Yeah, I've met some really stupid people. I met this one woman. She was asking me. I said, why don't you take a real estate course? She says, do you know I've bought 3 houses in my lifetime? I went, what do you mean you bought 3 houses? Every time my husband moved, I bought a house. And I said, yeah, but that's not an investment property. That's a residence. Oh, it's the same thing. So I no sense arguing with an idiot because there's 2 idiots. I always recommend taking courses. I don't care if they're my courses or Joe Schmo's courses. Mm-hmm. But you got to learn from real teachers, not fake teachers. Mm-hmm. And a fake teacher is somebody, like I said, who does not practice what they teach. Mm-hmm. And our academic system is filled with fake teachers. Yeah. It's just disgusting. So I have always subscribed to the story of the 3 wise men went in search of Jesus. Well, the 3 wise men were wise because they're always looking for the next teacher. And so I've been a mentor and an apprentice to some very great teachers. But you never find them in a college. These guys are in the field doing the real thing every day.
What do you think?
So I apprentice with real teachers, not fake teachers.
Right. What do you think this says about, like, basically the whole state overall? Because it's the state that dictates the education system.
Well, you were there when Tucker Carlson was speaking, did you?
Yes, yeah, I was. What did you think about that?
I loved it. He says, I beg my kids not to go to college.
What was his rationale again? For the audience that wasn't there.
Well, they put stupid ideas in the kids' heads.
Yeah.
Like, don't make mistakes, cooperation is cheating, that the rich are evil, that all you need is good grades, and you memorize the right answers. And I'm an entrepreneur. There's no such thing as a right answer in my world. There's just multiple guess tests constantly. Mm. And I'm constantly making mistakes, so I've got to learn from the mistakes. And I always have a team before I go in. Like right now, I'm evaluating a couple of projects that were at the event.
Yeah.
So my team is evaluating them because I'd rather have a bunch of 4 or 5 minds on the same project rather than operating as a lone wolf. I don't have to be very smart to be rich.
Right. You always talk about the emphasis of having a quality team, and effectively that adds a lot of scale to what you're doing. Could you share to the audience about some of your beliefs behind that?
Well, as a little boy of 9, when I was studying with my rich dad in Hilo, Hawaii, he had a meeting one Saturday a month, and it started around 7 o'clock in the morning. And at that meeting was a pretty fluid meeting. But he always had his accountant, had his attorney, his banker, his real estate agent, his stockbroker, his property manager. He had his human resource person there. He had his builders. Rich Dad would say, well, this is the problem I'm facing today. And it was a joint effort to solve his problems. And so that's how he got smarter, although he never went to school, because he surrounded himself with real teachers, real people, many of them highly educated, who are doing the real thing. They're not fake teachers from this college. They had none of those. So I'd sit there and listen to them, and I just copied them. So today I have, my real estate guy is 1,000 times smarter than me, and because he's smarter than me, I make a lot of money. And my accountant is really an accountant. He's also an entrepreneur. My attorney is also an entrepreneur, and my bookkeepers are real people. So I don't hang out with fake people. And what I mean by fake, people who don't do what they teach. And not that they're bad people, don't get me wrong, but every time I listen to these financial planners, they're not rich people. Right. Most of them are struggling to put food on the table. Why would I listen to them?
And a lot of them.
I interviewed Jim Rogers yesterday, and every time I introduced him, I played the song from Fiddler on the Roof, if I was a rich man, yada, 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 yada. I said, those are the kinds of guys I listen to. I listen to rich people, not salespeople.
Yeah, a lot of financial advisors, people don't understand, is when they go to the bank, they're pretty much just trying to sell you a product, and they work on behalf of the bank, and that's part of their KPIs. In terms of any investment advice that's wise, we don't know necessarily about that.
Well, that's a big point here, Peter. I went to, I won't mention the name of the, my problem is too much cash, so I'm always trying to move it to the next bank to keep it under the $250,000 FDIC mark.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and the girl says, oh, do you want to move it into a money market? I said, no, I lose my FDIC. Oh, but you get she said I think the interest rate was 0.011 and 0.016 something. And I sat there looking at her, and they says, oh, but you can buy some mutual funds, and my financial planner will talk to you. I said, will you give me a loan for those mutual funds? She goes, no. we don't give loans on mutual funds. I said, so why would I buy them from a bank then? And this poor girl, she was a college graduate. I mean, she was lost in Chicago someplace. Right. I don't know where she was. She didn't understand why I didn't want to buy something the bank wouldn't give me a loan for.
I don't know if margin counts in this instance, but yeah, probably if you're buying it from the bank, then it's just like these fun products that they have available, where they're collecting a lot of fees too, by the way.
I just don't know why you would buy something a bank wouldn't loan you money on.
So Robert,
I don't play margins because that's too short for me. The reason the banks, the banks get in trouble because they borrow short and lend long, right? That's why they're always in trouble.
So Robert,
I'm always at the bank borrowing long. I have ARMs that can extend and extend and extend. So I want to borrow as long as I can for as little as I can.
Right, and get it locked in, fixed. Robert, do you think we could get into something more advanced? Because I know that when you were at the conference, you were talking about some of the material. You kind of broke down like your rich dad and poor dad is kind of like more of the elementary stuff. And I know that you do have some new products out that, for example, discuss why the rich are getting richer. Perhaps we could spend the next few minutes just discussing about some of the key concepts and ideas about that. And that's something that I'm actually examining the world over when I look at places like Asia, where they're very good at orchestrating everything, the complete financial distortion in terms of the economic indicators, in terms of what you can use to transact, such as currencies, the banning of gold in some instances as far as transactions are concerned, and the ability to manipulate the currency while eroding purchasing power. So all of these things, especially post-financial crisis, have allowed the state to start to implement these programs the world over. And effectively, they're making multinational trade agreements, for example, that's being eradicated, and they're heavily increasing capital controls. So I'd love to get your elements towards this. And I think I see a massive wealth dispersion between the rich and the poor. You'll go to shopping malls where you see Saks and Fifth and Walmart, which are the two predominant stores that you have available there.
You heard of business models, right?
Yeah.
So my business model is very simple. It's the McDonald's model. And the reason I like real estate is because I can use 100% debt, and the more debt I use, the less tax I pay. And it's the Trump formula also. Debt and taxes make you richer. And that goes back to 1913, the year the Fed was created. And simultaneously, 1913 was when the 16th Amendment was created, which gave permission to tax the American people. So real money is really just a function of debt and taxes. And the average person, they may have a PhD in animal husbandry or whatever it is, but they don't know anything about debt and taxes. So why the rich are getting richer is the rich understand how to use debt as money, and the more debt they use, the less tax they pay. That's why, you have to pay 8% in taxes, and Hillary just cheats, and Trump uses debt and pays no taxes also.
Right.
So it's really a point of view on your education, which probably is why Tucker Carlson didn't want his kids to go to college, because you're trained to think like an employee or a doctor or a lawyer and not a rich person.
Right.
There's been high income and high cash flow. They're two different things. For example, my friend is a medical doctor in California. As a young guy, he's probably 40, and he called me. He says, I made my first $1 million. I said, yeah, and what was the net? He said, what do you mean, what's my net? I said, how much tax did you pay? He paid 70% in California.
Wow.
So his net is $300,000. Yeah, because he's a smart guy, hardworking.
Right.
He takes no tax, he uses no tax strategy. Whereas when I make $1 million, I pay tax.
Right.
So who's smarter,
It's interesting.
And that's how I measure things.
Right. It's quite interesting how you refer to debt and taxes. When I study the founding of many countries, say, for example, in Asia, most of the countries that you have right now are basically post-World War II. And when you look at some of these countries, or for example, the Vietnam War, which you participated in, right after 1975, there was a new government in power. And one of the first things they implemented was their state bank or their central bank, which gave them the right to print money. And one of the key policies in Asia, which we discussed about, is the component of credit. Commercial bank loans make up to 70% of all credit available for many companies in these kinds of countries. So it's strictly fueled by credit. And what's interesting is that it's actually banks that are issuing out all the debt. So people confuse that even the money, like you said, that people have in their hands, it's actually fiat money. And the real money is actually held in the central bank. That's what they call real money. And all the stuff that we're holding in our hands is actually just debt as well. So we actually clarify a lot of the semantics that are being used in regards to this, because people confuse what the real money is versus the things that they have in their hand.
Yeah, that's why it gets a little confusing, but all a person has to understand is the fractional reserve system.
Yeah.
So when you put $1 in savings, the bank's allowed to lend out 10, approximately 10, 12, depending upon the reserve system. So let's say it's 10, so you put $1 in, the bank can lend out 10. Our dollar is a liability to them. So when they issue credit, that becomes an asset to the bank.
Exactly.
So our debtors or borrowers, and they really don't like savers.
Right.
That's a system all over the world.
And for the audience that isn't aware, most financial service companies, literally within their financial statements, will have what we understand as credit and debt for basically their customers is actually considered an asset within their financial statements. And that just indicates that when people discuss about like the rising amount of assets that banks have, that's actually just a rising accumulation of debt and credit.
Most of the time. And as you know, a mutual fund doesn't make the investor rich. It makes the mutual fund company rich due to fees.
Yep.
It's such a ripoff. I mean, I can't believe people still do that stuff.
Well, Robert, we've reached the 30-minute mark, so thank you very much for participating.
Oh, you can keep going. I'm fine.
Are you okay?
I can keep going. That was just my publicist.
Oh, okay.
So have I answered your... In other words, I'm trying to say that I'm opposite. I'm on the rich side, not the poor and middle class side. I love debt. I don't like paying taxes. The people that cheat on taxes are the people who work for money. But big business like myself, I'm always being, Trump and I are always being audited, which is good because it keeps us honest.
Robert, what do you think about the minimum wage?
Audits are good things.
Right. What do you think about minimum wages?
What's that?
What do you think about minimum wages and how people are fighting for increases in minimum wages?
Well, I don't really think much about it. I feel for the people with no financial education because, as you know, when you get more income, you move into a higher tax bracket. It doesn't make sense. It really, Peter, it doesn't make any sense to me. My own employees, they're always talking about saving money. I don't think they understand anything that my company talks about. Why would you save money when they printed, anywhere from $4 to $8 trillion in the last 3 years? Why would you save it?
Right.
Why would you save it when interest rates are negative? I don't know. My mother and father told me to save money and get out of debt. So they just basically Polly wants a cracker,
What they also don't understand is that by increasing minimum wages, it allows, for example, the whole society to actually inflate all the costs, which actually eradicates whatever increase in salary that you're receiving, because basically, for example, when you study retailers, they're able to pass on any inflationary costs that they incur.
I mean, I feel for people, Peter. You saw today, I was watching CNBC, and that what's that company just announced that they're months away from a totally driverless car. That's what I would talk about. So if there's going to be a totally, what's that company?
Tesla?
Goofy name. But anyway,
okay.
If a totally driverless car, the first thing they're going to automate is a truck.
Yeah.
And that's where auto's coming from. So that's going to put all these high-paid truckers out of business. And so what are you arguing about a higher wage? You're out of business.
Yeah.
And then what about Uber drivers and taxi drivers? And think of the ripple effect through families and all that. And these guys are talking about minimum wage. I really don't understand people, Peter. I was just raised differently from 9 years old. The rich don't work for money. I don't want a job. I don't want to pay taxes. And I want to use debt. And I buy gold. I don't save money. That's been my formula since 72.
Robert, near the end of your speech in New Orleans, you had discussed about the attraction of gold and how it brings greater wealth. That was a little metaphysical, and I love for the audience to hear what you meant by that.
Well, there was I guess he's Hindu, but he's a white guy, and his name was Guru Deva. And he was in the Apple commercial when the Apple came out, and Guru Deva was running an ashram or a temple on the island of Kauai. So when Apple ran an ad of him and his cohorts, his fellow monks, title was Holy Ike. So I never forgot the guy, and then one day I got a chance to meet him in Hawaii, and the guy was dripping in gold. He had gold glasses, gold bracelets, gold watches, everything was gold. And that goes against the Christian thing, love of money is the root of all evil. So I had to ask him. I said, Guru, why are you wearing all that gold? That was because I'd already stashed a whole bunch of gold.
Right.
And his words were, because gold is or are the tears of God. And wherever there's gold attracts wealth. So he says, for example, if you want $5,000 a month in income, just keep $1,000 of real gold, no ETFs. There weren't ETFs in those days. But $5,000 in real gold, and it'll good fortune to you, which is pretty Chinese, really, I think. Not Japanese. Japanese aren't that smart. But anyway, it works. So every time I wanted more money, I just went out and bought more gold coins and stashed them in my hiding place outside of my house. It was a secret hiding place. Uh-huh. And I've just kept accumulating gold, and the more gold I attracted or accumulated, the greater my income went up.
So now you're a believer.
So I'm not saying, well, it works. It won't work for somebody who doesn't believe it. But I believe it. That's why I have thousands of ounces of gold. And I'd rather have thousands of ounces of gold than millions of dollars in cash, because cash will eventually go to zero. All fiat currencies ultimately go to zero throughout history. So in 20 years, will Bitcoin be around? I don't think so. They're currency, but I don't think Bitcoin will be it. Will the dollar be around? Probably, but it's not going to be worth anything. But 20 years from now, gold will still be here. It's been here for thousands of years, since millennial. So I'd rather have gold than dollars or sovereign money. But I also use debt as money, and I don't pay taxes legally. And that's been my formula since that day in 1972 when I was in Vietnam. And my rich dad said to me, watch out, the world's going to change. And I got another bulletin across my desk. It says China is now going to issue the yuan or the RMB in gold.
Yeah.
That's going to steal the hegemony of the dollar. But Russia and China are yuan with gold, ultimate gold backed. The dollar is losing its power, its hegemony. So I won't save dollars. I'm more adamant I'm out of dollars.
Right. I think that there will be one final massive run up in the dollar when basically there is another crisis and everyone needs to get out of all the risky assets they're in and basically try to convert to cash again. I can imagine that scenario.
It could be. Look, that little coin was $50, and I'm never going to sell. I don't need money. I use debt.
Right.
And so a couple of people came up to me and said, "You're really negative, aren't you?" I said, "Well, maybe I am, but I have debt, and I save gold. Buy never sold real estate. So I have what I call tangible, not paper. I don't have any stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETF, or cash. I have cash,
right?
But I don't save cash for the long term."
Robert, do you think I could get
my formula.
Do you think I could get a photo of this coin? Because you talk about it a lot, and I think that would be so impactful for people to see this coin. If I could get a photo of that, that would be great.
It's in Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
When I was in Vietnam, I understood fake news. I love my country. I just don't trust my country.
Even with your friend running the country?
No, it's not him. He's not Superman.
Yeah. When's the last time you spoke to him?
Friend's main job. We're supposed to write a book together, but then when he made the announcement, he said, "I'm sorry, I can't do the book." I said, "I understand. Good luck." You see, he's not. He's a good man, but he's not Superman. He cannot stop what's about to happen. We're trillions and trillions. Look at Japan. Japan is about to go into depression, and they keep printing money. Are you crazy? So we'll try it again.
I was saying that the central bank owns a majority of the debt, so I don't know how they can default on themselves.
Well, you and I know there's a word called confidence. Mm-hmm. And if the people lose confidence in the yen, it's over. And the thing that I would kind of find interesting, because I'm Japanese, everybody thinks the Japanese are stupid. But America, the same thing as Japan is doing, only we're just 10 years behind.
Right.
No fiat currency has ever survived, Peter. Never. Has never survived.
Right.
Well, as I said, 20 years from now, gold will still be here. The dollar may not be here. So which one are you going to save?
Right, right.
Robert. And every time they print dollars, gold gets better.
So Robert, when's the last time you've been to Vietnam?
Last year.
Really?
I travel constantly. I mean, I just got when they saw me in New Orleans, I just got off the plane from China.
Wow. Do you think
I do the same talks all over the world? I tell people they're nuts for saving money.
Yeah.
They're crazy.
I'd love to get
now,
you.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I think gold will be here 20 years from now. What do you think?
Robert, we'd love to get you to do a speaking engagement in Vietnam.
I really don't want to travel anymore, Pete. I mean, I just got back.
Right. No, not anytime soon. Not anytime soon.
Let me tell you my life. I started in power, went to Argentina, went to Brazil, Singapore, Japan, China, New Orleans. That was been my schedule.
Right.
So I don't think people can hear what I'm saying because most of them are.
Maybe sometime next year, though.
I just don't understand people. Why would you want a job when Uber drivers are going to lose their jobs? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And why would you save money when they're printing money? Why would you go to college and learn nothing about money? And why would you try to get out of debt when it is money? It's never made sense to me since 1972. So I use debt as money and I pay no tax legally. I buy gold.
Yeah.
I save gold because I don't need cash. And actually, gold is a hedge against my debt, if you understand that.
Yeah.
In case I make a mistake. So that's my formula. I don't think most people can do what I do. Trump can. I do.
Well, Robert, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
I'll entertain. Yeah, well, no, you're a pretty sharp young man, so I appreciate it.
Maybe when you're in the mood to travel in the future, I'd love to have you to come to Vietnam. Not anytime soon, but in the future.
Yeah, well, they're trying to get me to go to Japan, and I don't want to go to Japan again. I just got back 3 days ago, or 2 weeks ago, a week ago. I don't remember,
Right.
I just, Peter, Japanese aren't very smart people. They're still going to save money.
They're forced to by the government because they give them tax incentives to save money and to buy government bonds.
Yeah, but they could fly overseas. They could just fly to Hong Kong and buy some gold.
I don't know what the capital controls are in Japan, Robert, because like certain countries don't allow you to invest abroad, for example. And the states basically through their various different programs have all these retirement programs and social security programs. So you're almost like forced to.
Peter, if you're rich, you can move your money. You know that, and I know that.
Right.
It's the poor peasant who went to college can't do it.
But that's what the state wants, Robert. They need people to feed them.
I know, Peter. I know.
We're all sheep.
I was talking to this guy yesterday, and he had his third kid, and I said, I hope you're buying some gold. He says, no, I'm saving money. I said, why don't you buy some gold? He says, I can't afford it. And I said to him, I can't afford it is the mantra of a poor man.
Yeah.
And unless they change that thought, they'll never be rich. I can't afford it. And my other friend, who's grossly overweight, says, I don't have time to go to the gym. I said, okay. It's a very expensive thought. I hate going to the gym, but I still go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a poor person is really easy to say, I can't afford it. That was my dad, PhD from Stanford. I can't afford it. Money grows on trees.
Right.
And that's the problem, Peter.
But you need that in order for the state to be alive and for the current system to be the way that it is. I mean, if you look at governments around the world, especially like the big ones, they're primarily maybe one party or two party max. Like in Japan, it's pretty much been one party since World War II. So it's if they allow this to all like start to default and collapse, which they'll try to do everything that they can to avoid that, it ensures that they stay in power. If you look at America, you have pretty much Republicans and Democrats. They're effectively the elite because they're the ones who are always in power, and all our tax money is going towards financing whatever it is that they want to do, and they can artificially stimulate it.
There's not much difference between them.
Yeah, there's everywhere in the world. the Chinese government talks about stability, and what they mean is stability for themselves in order to sustain in power, right? That's why they have this 1 million-man army. It's not a 1 million-man army of the Chinese people. It's a 1 million-man army of the People's Republic of China.
Well, I think a dictatorship works well in China, same as it does in Singapore.
I think
I'm afraid America will never go that way.
I think that all these states, through central banks, are inflating their whole society through credit, and that's what allows them to survive. Now, I don't know if that's good at all, period. So I'm talking about something probably even much higher than what kind of government works. It seems like all governments understand how to utilize credit for their benefit, basically.
Well, they're fighting deflation.
Yeah.
That's what they're fighting. Because if it deflates and the dollar or currency deflates, they can't pay for that debt.
Right.
Then they default. And that's why, I think it's so interesting that China says they're going to back the yuan or RMB with gold to sell oil or buy oil. That's huge news, but all we hear about is Trump and the Russian investigation. It's really sad, Peter. It's really sad what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you need this dialogue for the rest of the 99% to be preoccupied by the less important things, while the real important things are being passed through without a majority's sight in what's actually really happening.
Correct. And when I advertised the New Orleans investment conference, Facebook yanked my ad. They said you're not allowed to say what you said.
Why is that?
Yeah, it's interesting, huh?
Well, Robert,
it's really, Peter.
Yeah.
How old are you? How old are you?
I'm in my mid-30s, and I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you're at the right age at the right time, man. It's gonna get real exciting one way or the other.
It is, and it's Robert, though, like all your content, though, it requires a real outlier, someone with a lot of self-confidence, because imagine if you're in the middle class or lower middle class, you have to fight not only like these beliefs that you discuss about in your book, you actually have to fight amongst your peers, your friends, and your family that will be looking at you as a weirdo to be talking about the things that you're talking about. So it's always nice to participate in conferences like that to discuss with people of like mind.
And it's like I said, when Facebook shut me down, I said, well, I guess fascism has hit America. So anyway, but it's no different. Like I said, it's been in Vietnam. I didn't believe any of the news. They killed so many million Vietnamese and only 2 Americans died. I'm going, come on, I was there. That didn't happen.
Right. In fact, the catalyst.
So anyway, now I have to run, Peter. So I appreciate the interview.
Okay, I look forward to maybe speaking.
Keep up the good work, my friend. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. I'll try to speak to you soon one day.
We hope you enjoyed this mastermind session. If you would like deeper insight into Asia's investment landscape, please email research@oneroadresearch.com, visit our website at www.oneroadresearch.com, and subscribe to our e-newsletter for daily updates and exclusive reports.